Affliction just got buffed, and I think a lot of people have it completely wrong. It is one of the strongest specs you can play in the game in Battleground Blitz. It is really good now, but you've heard a lot of people say they're struggling with it, and it is true. Honestly, in Shuffle and Arena, it's still pretty hard to make it work. It takes a lot of effort. It's a very hard spec to play. But it actually is viable and it can work. I've made it work. I'll show you the build that seems to be working the best for me, and you can see if that works for you. This build will definitely work in Blitz, and it will be one of the easiest ways to get to 1600, 1800, get your quick achievements, get your catalyst charge. It's insanely effective. So in this guide, I'm going to break down exactly how to play Affliction the way I do, and where it's strong, and how to actually win with it. Just so you know, I've got guides out for Demo and Destro already. This one is actually the one I've been asked about the most because there's so many people who are curious about Affliction. Is it good? Is it finally good? Because through a lot of the War Within and the start of the Midnight expansion, Affliction has been underperforming in PvP, but I think we're starting to see where it's headed and how to make it work. For this video, I'm going to start with the current state of Affliction. I'm going to just talk about the playstyle and where it fits in the meta, and then I'm going to talk about gearing and then talents. I'm going to go through every single talent point to tell you how I'm thinking about these talent points, and so you can make some decisions on your own because there's a lot of tailoring you can do, and there's a few different directions you can take the spec. Then we're going to talk about rotations. I'm going to show you the standard rotations, the burst rotation, and then I'm going to just talk a little bit about defensives and just overall closing notes on gameplay. And finally, I do stream very frequently and I love to answer questions. Just pop into my stream sometime, twitch.tv/smellystinky, and happy to chat. All right, first things first, let's just talk a little bit about the state of Affliction. So we recently got actually 2 straight weeks of very large buffs. First, a 15% aura buff to Affliction damage, huge. And then we got a bunch of extra damage added to our dots, made Unstable Affliction last longer, which is huge. And we got some more Shadow Bolt and Drain Soul damage. Actually quite a lot more, 100% more. Now, what I'd say is that the damage increase is noticeable in terms of overall pressure, and it does add to the viability of the spec. But I'd say that some of the patch notes, which were very focused on things like Shadow Bolt and Drain Soul, I think they're leading some people astray in terms of how to think about the spec. I've seen some suggestions around builds that are more focused on crit, or more focused on trying to maximize your Shadow Bolt damage. I don't think that's exactly the most effective way to play Warlock right now, and I'll talk through that in the talent point section. But I do think that the best, most effective gameplay right now is going to be Hellcaller Affliction, very much focused on your dot damage and your minute cooldowns, and just trying to rot people down. You actually have a really strong burst window, and it's pretty underrated right now. In terms of viability, I do want to say that in Blitz, Warlock is for sure top tier. Affliction is top tier. It's going to have a ton of control over a larger map. You have a ranged, spammable slow, so you can slow everybody who passes by the middle of a map, basically. You have a very decent team fight. It's not necessarily like you're going to top every single team fight damage meter, but you definitely can. And you have a lot of ability to burst a single target as soon as somebody shows a little bit of vulnerability. In terms of Arena and Shuffle, it's playable, but it's very difficult to play. Affliction is definitely one of the more challenging specs to play. You will get targeted a lot. You have to have really high actions per minute to get the same result as somebody who's playing a much easier spec. So it's doable, it's viable. I'm making it work, but I don't necessarily recommend it for newer players. I'd say that Blitz is definitely the way to start Affliction. In terms of why to play Affliction though, it is just super fun. It's so satisfying when you get a bunch of dots rolling on everybody. You proc or hit Malevolence, and you just see everybody's health bars just disappear. It's really fun. You do have to get a lot of stuff to line up, but it can be really high impact, and it also can be high impact with mostly just instant casts, which is why I think Hellcaller is probably the way to go for most people at this point in the game. There might be more buffs along the way. I think Affliction actually probably is due for even more buffs, even on top of what we've gotten over the last couple weeks. And so we could see Affliction start to really rise in the ranks once we see those. All right. Now, in terms of gearing. So gearing is, there's two paths. If you are focused entirely on Battleground Blitz, I think you want to go Haste and Mastery, and then Versatility, and then Crit. So Haste and Mastery will make your dots do a ton of damage, and you'll get a lot of procs. You'll get a lot of extra shards. Really powerful, especially in Blitz when you're trying to dot multiple targets at the same time. In Shuffle and Arena, though, you're going to benefit more from Versatility than Mastery. So I think Haste and Versatility are the way to go in Shuffle and Arena. So if you do a mixture of stuff, personally, I play a lot of Demo, Destro, I play Shuffle, I play Blitz. So I go for Haste and Versatility on all my gear, and I think that works out really nicely. I'll add, though, that some people have been trying a crit-based approach to Affliction, because the Haunt Shadowbolt combo, if it crits, it can actually do quite a lot of damage, a lot of burst damage. But I want to caution that I don't think it is super effective for a variety of reasons. The first is that if you don't prioritize haste, it's really hard to keep getting enough shards and get enough resources and procs to stay at a threatening level at all times. And that's because you get a lot of shards and procs and things based on how quickly your dots are ticking, and your dots tick a lot faster when you stack a lot of haste. Second is it's harder to even get your casts out the door if you don't have a bunch of haste. It's pretty important to have a high amount of haste, and then Versatility is going to help a ton in any sort of arena and shuffle situation because you get targeted a bunch, you need to reduce the damage that's incoming. It's hard to afford other stats like crit or mastery at this point, except when you're doing a Blitz. So there is a world in which you go haste crit in Blitz, but I think you'll find that you'll get more mileage out of Mastery because Mastery will improve your dot damage, and I believe that dot damage is significantly more threatening than Shadowbolt, even if you go for a full Haunt Shadowbolt combo. Alright, in terms of what gear pieces to get, you can get all your gear from this guy over here in the Conquest Quartermaster. Conquest Quartermaster is located right there in the southwest of the city. You can buy all your gear there, get just a bunch of haste, versatility stuff. In terms of crafting, there are a few different ways you can take your first 9 heraldries that you get for free when you start playing battlegrounds and arenas and stuff. You're just going to get 9 free heraldries. You can craft some pieces, and it's nice to put a couple of embellishments on there. You can put a variety of embellishments. I've been trying Prismatic Focusing Iris, which you can put on jewelry pieces like this. It's not bad. It gets you about 1% extra damage per embellishment. You can also try Devouring Banding or Arcana Weave Lining on cloth armor pieces. So I could have spent these heraldries instead of on jewelry. I could have put them on like boots and bracers or cloak or something like that and get Arcana Weave Lining or Devouring Banding for a little extra damage procs. Not damage procs, but buff procs there. I think you get to about the same general result. Right now I'm testing something. This is called Darkmoon Sigil Hunt, which is the top PvE weapon embellishment. So if you do a little bit of PvE, I like to do M+ as well. You can get an early 285 weapon, and you can put an embellishment on there. I'm testing it. The uptime on weapon embellishment seems to be pretty high, so I'm liking it. But at the same time, next week we're going to get more conquest points, and we should be able to get a free weapon. So I would not recommend using any of your heraldries to craft a weapon at this point in time. It's possible that later in the season we're going to want a weapon embellishment, in which case we'll replace our PvP conquest weapon. But next week we're going to get enough conquest points to get this achievement down here. It's called Galactic something. Let's see, Galactic Weapons of Conquest. As soon as you get 2,500 conquest points total earned, you get a free weapon. So don't spend any heraldries or conquest points on your weapon yet. You're going to get a free two-handed staff basically next week. In terms of enchants, there are a variety of enchants you can get on the helm and shoulders. I go with Leech. Leech seems to be a little bit better for my playstyle, which is very aggressive in people's faces. So getting a little leeched, getting some healing back is helpful. You can also get speed enchants, which are very good, especially in Blitz. They can help you kite and help you get to objectives a little faster. It doesn't make a huge difference, so whatever you prefer. Get Mark of the World Soul on your chest piece. In terms of your weapon enchant, I'm trying this one. It's called Acuity of the Renderai. It's an intellect proc, but there's also haste, mastery, crit, and versatility proc enchants, and I think they're all pretty similar in terms of output, so whatever you prefer. In terms of legs, you can get a spell thread. I actually have a cheap spell thread here. There's a better one that has intellect and I think stamina, I believe. It's more expensive, but you can get that on your legs. Boots, you can get something like, actually, I don't even know what this does. I think it's stamina and maybe some leech or something. I don't know. But you can get some sort of boot enchant. They're all super expensive this early in the expansion. Doesn't matter a ton. On your rings, you can get a haste or you can get a versatility enchant on your rings. I'd recommend haste at this point until you get to about 30% haste. That's a kind of comfortable break point. And that's pretty much it for enchants. For gems, there's one gem that you absolutely need to have in your gear and as soon as possible. So it's really important to get at least one piece of jewelry so you can stick a gem in there. Cognitive Heliotrope. This is going to give you primary stat, which is intellect. That gives you more damage, but more importantly, it gives you precognition. So precognition is going to give you basically a 4-second buff that makes you immune to crowd control, and you get it when an enemy tries to interrupt you. They miss their interrupt because you fake cast it or whatever, or they stack their interrupt with somebody else, and it ends up giving you a huge little window where you can cast whatever you want, like Dark Harvest or anything. You're very powerful, you need that. The other gems, they don't matter too much. You can get some mixture of versatility and haste, or like haste and versatility. It's like very small stat amounts from the gems, so it doesn't matter too much. For trinkets, you have some options. I'm actually testing out this one here. This is the badge. There are really two different trinkets you can get that are damage focused. The other one's insignia, which is a passive proc. The badge, I don't like the crit strike passive amount there, and that's not very well itemized for PvP. But the on use is nice because it's a 1-minute cooldown, so it lines up very cleanly with your malevolence cooldown, which I'll talk about in the talents section. So this lets you do more reliable burst every single minute. I think this works out pretty well, especially this season, because if you play a variety of like Demo and Destro and Affliction, they all have very pronounced 1-minute cooldown burst windows. For Demo, it's around your Tyrant. For Destro and Affliction, it's around your Malevolence cooldown. And so I think this is actually a higher value trinket this season. However, the Insignia is perfectly fine too. It procs a ton. And your other trinket, you're always going to take the Medallion. Medallion is going to get you out of crowd control on demand when you need to, get out of dodge, get out of a smoke bomb, whatever. You can do a mixture of crafting or purchasing from the PvP vendor. It doesn't matter. As long as your item level is going up every single week with Conquest, you will be A-okay. Alright, let's talk Warlock Talent points. So, the first thing to know about the Warlock tree is that there are really two main approaches depending on the content you're doing. If you're doing Shuffle and Arena, you're going to want to go with something that looks more like this. And the main difference between this and the other build, which is going to be more focused on Blitz, is simply over here. It's Burning Rush and Fiendish Stride. So when you play Battleground Blitz, it is more important than anything to get to the objectives as quickly as possible. So you will be taking Burning Rush and Fiendish Stride every time you play Blitz. But when you play Shuffle and Arena, because these drain a lot of health while you use them, you're definitely not going to play them at all. And so you'll just take those points out and you'll put them in things like Abyss Walker or something to heal up your pet, like Infernal Beneficiary and Gorfiend's Avarice. These are good for healing your pet, because your pet is going to take a lot more damage in a Shuffle kind of setting. But if you go to Blitz, this is your build. You're simply going to take those points out. You're going to take from there, you get Fiendish Stride and Burning Rush. And then I've started playing with Fel Pact a little bit more in Blitz because I'm playing with a pet even in team fight situations, because you just get a lot more damage over here. I'll talk about it in a bit. but your pet will die a lot. Pets are a lot squishier in Midnight than they used to be. Getting an extra Fel Domination is pretty nice. All right, now I'm going to talk through every single talent point just so you can have a sense of how I'm thinking about the game. Fel Domination, this gets you an instant cast pet. You will need this anytime you're playing with a pet, which is most of the time these days. It's very powerful. You need to have this. Fel Pact actually pairs pretty nicely with it. It'll reduce the cooldown significantly, and because pets are squishy, they die a lot, you get some value there. It's actually not a bad combo right there, for Affliction especially. These 3 talent points, these just make you a little tankier, not much you need to know about them. These I talked about, you need these for Blitz because they're going to get you from point A to point B as quickly as possible. This makes you tankier, this makes you tankier, don't worry about them, they're fine. This one here is very powerful. So Nightmare is going to make your fears break less quickly. And this is really important for Affliction locks because fear is one of your only forms of crowd control. The thing about Affliction is that you really lack crowd control in general, so you got to get a lot of value out of your fears. Horrify, I don't even know why this exists, honestly, but like this doesn't really work in PvP. You want people to run away from you when you fear them, so you want to take Nightmare. Over here, Curse of Exhaustion, you're always going to take this. It's really awesome in both Shuffle and Blitz. In Blitz, you're basically just spamming Curse of Exhaustion on as many targets as possible. It's super fun, super awesome. In Shuffle, you can use this very strategically to kite somebody or prevent them from running away. It's really nice. Curse of Tongues, this is an option you can take. I don't tend to take it at all when I play Hellcaller because over here, you can get Curse of the Satyr, which basically serves as a Curse of the Tongues. It's really nice. I almost always take this, and so I just get to save 1 talent point in my Warlock tree. But it is a decent option if you don't want to take this, if you want to go for Aura of Enfeeblement, which is a pretty nice defensive cooldown, enhances your Unending Resolve. It's not bad, but I would say that you can free up a talent point easily just by taking Satyr instead. So Infernal Beneficiary is the replacement for Health Funnel, which used to be the way that Warlocks would heal up their pets when they took damage. Now you have to heal them by draining life. You just cast Drain Life on an enemy. If you have this talent point, it'll heal it pretty quickly. If you have that talent point and Gorefiend's Avarice, it'll heal your pet super fast. So in Shuffle and Arena, I actually do take both of these talent points pretty frequently. In Blitz, sometimes you can take it. You can shuffle some points around here and there, like you can move this over here, keep your pet alive instead of resummoning it when it dies. Totally fine option there. Mortal Coil, this is huge. This is now, basically you're going to take this in every single build. This is one of your few forms of CC. This is going to horrify a target, a single target, for a few seconds. Really helpful to close out a kill or just make sure you can line up some further CC on them, get a nice CC chain going. And it also heals you for a pretty significant amount, especially when you take Improved Mortal Coil, which you will also always take, because it increases the range, most importantly, which makes it a lot easier to land this on a priority target. Over here, I didn't mention Banish. This is something that you will basically never take. You can take it against another Warlock to banish their primary pet, but honestly, primary pets are not super impactful these days. They don't do a ton of damage, even if you're Demonology, so not hugely high priority spell. Here, Pact of the Nihilin, a little bit extra damage, it's fine. Same with Pact of the Satyr, a little extra damage, haste and crit. Not much to say there. Here, Demonic Circle, this is really important. This is the center of your action. You're going to lay a circle everywhere you go. And as soon as you lay a circle, you're going to, this is like the sun, and you think of yourself as a planet, you're just orbiting around it. You're never going too far from it because you always want to port back to it when you get into trouble. Really important to use this a lot. And if you're playing Shuffle or Arena, you're going to be using this very frequently and pairing it with Abyss Walker, which will give you a damage reduction buff every time you use Teleport. Really powerful. You want to use this a lot, so definitely take this in Shuffle and Arena. Dark Pact, this is your short cooldown defensive. You use this a lot, basically all the time, especially if you pair it with Frequent Donor. You're very strong for Shuffle and Arena. Cure of Devils is probably what I take more frequently when I play Blitz because it'll save you a little health, which is important if you're off on your own, which you'll find yourself in Blitz. You're often completely by yourself, so that's actually very valuable there. But in Shuffle and Arena, take Frequent Donor. You're going to be using Dark Pact early and often. Foul Mouth. This is amazing. So this is going to spread your curse to anybody in 10 yards range of them, which is surprisingly effective with a Curse of Exhaustion. You can slow a whole pack of people. They're all like tightly packed. One Curse of Exhaustion will make them all slow. It's amazing. All right, Empowered Health Stone. I think this is valuable, especially for Affliction, because you're pretty squishy. So every little bit you can get in terms of defensives, this is going to make your health stone a lot better. It's worth taking. Fortified Soul. This is basically just a way to access more points below. It barely registers. Now, Pact of the Nathersim, again, this is a flex point. So Leech is not huge in PvP. You can move this around. There are a few different options. You can move it here. You can actually try it down here. This is a new talent node over here for Affliction, or for Warlocks in general in Midnight. I don't find them super effective in PvP because they're slow-moving clouds. I think they're more for PvE, honestly, but you can play around with them. You might find some use for them in certain situations. I just stick it there because it's a passive little leech. This makes you a little tankier, helps your pet be a little tankier. I think it's actually a must-have point. It's not as effective as it was last expansion, unfortunately, but it's something. Over here, this is just going to make your drain life even better, so you can get 3 different drain life points. But don't be fooled, drain life is still pretty bad in terms of healing yourself, even if you take all the points and you get essence drain. If you get every single node that can buff your drain life, still going to be pretty bad. So I would only take Infernal Beneficiary and maybe sometimes Gorfiend's Avarice just to heal up your pet. That's it. I would basically never take this. This will, by the way, heal your pet faster too, but that's overkill at that point. Okay. So Strength of Will, Dark Accord. These are both really important. Strength of Will, you're going to take this most of the time in solo shuffle or arena because it's going to give you the strongest defensive cooldown possible. And when it comes to Unending Resolve, you're usually only using it once per round, once per game, because it's your last resort. This is your biggest defensive cooldown. You're using it to get out of dodge when you're in a ton of trouble. Very important. In Blitz, though, you're using it every time it's available, essentially. It's like you're always getting into fights. You're going to be using it a lot. So Dark Accord can actually give you quite a lot of value in Blitz. I tend to play this more in Blitz, but you can also play Strength of Will, too. Demonic Gateway. This is a huge spell. You really need to use this. You can pair it with Soul Burn, so it's an instant cast. This is very important to getting from across the map very quickly. Really important shuffle. Demonic Gateway, you simply use the gateway and you can go super far. And importantly, we have Frequent Traveler now, which is a new talent point in Midnight. This lets us use Demonic Gateway a second time. It's actually on cooldown again because I was using it earlier, but you can use Demonic Gateway twice in a row. Very powerful mobility enhancement in Midnight. Over here, Howl of Terror and Shadow Fury. This is a choice node. I think Howl of Terror is generally going to be better for most situations because when you're playing Affliction, you're getting trained down by melee all the time. So you want to just howl them on cooldown. It's an AoE fear around you. It's a really nice way, especially paired with Nightmare. The fears are not going to break super fast, at least. So it's pretty nice, especially with Oppressive Darkness, which reduces the cooldown a little bit. Shadow Fury is not bad because you don't really have any other stuns as an Affliction lock. So this has a lot of value. However, it is a hard cast. You can get kicked during it. And it's more useful when you can play a little bit further at range. So there are times in Blitz when this might have more value. However, most of the time, Howl of Terror will let you make more plays, better plays. So I think this is generally a good default. Over here, Swift Artifice. This will make your health stones a little bit faster to cast. Not very important in PvP. However, in longer 3v3 matches, like if your playstyle with your team in threes tends to be like long games and you end up summoning health stones a lot, you might actually get some value out of it, but for most people, not a big deal. Soul Link, this makes you a little tankier. It's really nice. Fel Synergy also makes you a little tankier, gives you a little healing, but it's a very small amount. So this is not a high priority node. You can get this if you want to move some points around, sure, but it's usually something I skip. Soul Burn, this is amazing. You're going to pair this with Demonic Circle Teleport in order to get a little speed boost every time you teleport. You're going to use it with Gateway, so you don't have to hard cast Gateway. It's an instant cast. You're going to use it with Health Stone, because with Health Stone, it's going to make your healing way stronger. Really nice 1 minute cooldown. And you're never going to pair it with Drain Life because Drain Life is so bad these days that it's just, even with the Soul Burn and all the talent points of Drain Life, it's just no good. So those are the 3 things you're going to pair this with. Here, this is super important. Pact of Gluttony. You're going to turn your health stone into a minute cooldown, so you can use it every minute. It's going to be a huge heal, especially paired with a Soul Burn. So you're gonna get a lot of value out of this. Always take this in all forms of content. So those are the Warlock talent points. Let's talk about hero talent points. So there are 2 hero talents for Affliction. There's Hellcaller and there's Soul Harvester. Soul Harvester in the War Within was basically the go-to spec hero talent for most Warlocks. I was playing both. I think Soul Harvester was very strong. It was doing a ton of single target burst. Your Haunt Shadow Bolt combos were very threatening. It was very nice to get some free soul shards every time you use Soul Rot. Soul Rot was like, it's a spell that used to exist, it's now totally gone, so don't even worry about it. But basically Soul Harvester was the go-to spec, and I think a lot of Warlocks these days are still playing Soul Harvester almost out of habit because they think it's the PvP spec. I believe that Hellcaller is significantly outperforming Soul Harvester right now. Now this could change. Obviously there's a lot of tunings every single week. We're going to see more and more balance changes over the coming weeks. This is very common with the new expansion. So right now though, Hellcaller is almost certainly better in every single way, both in single target burst, in kind of spread rot pressure. It's a lot easier to play because you have less dependency on hard casting and more on just your instant cast dots. You have more options when you get kicked in shadow. As a Soul Harvester lock, you're just sitting there doing nothing. If you get kicked in shadow as a Hellcaller lock, you can actually do a lot. You can just spam your Wither, you can hit Malevolence, and even just spamming Wither, which is a Shadow Flame spell, which you can cast when you're kicked in shadow, it's amazingly good because Wither is one of your highest damage spells, and you want to spread that on as many targets as possible, and you want to refresh it on anybody where it's about to fall off. So very easy to play Hellcaller when you're getting kicked a lot. I think Hellcaller is what I would recommend for most people. There might be some people who will make Soul Harvester work better. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some folks who are trying a kind of crit-based Soul Harvester build where you're trying to load a lot of damage into your Haunt and Shadow Bolt combos with your Nightfall procs. However, I believe Hellcaller is the way to go for most people, and especially in Blitz. I think it's a no-brainer in Blitz. You want to go Hellcaller. It's going to do way more damage and have way more control over the map. All right. In terms of the points, though, I guess I should mention there are a few different things you can do in Hellcaller. I'm not even going to talk about the Soul Harvester points in detail, but this is generally the build you're going to do. The only decision you need to make is either Feast of Souls or Shared Fate. That's really the only decision. They both do pretty similar damage. I think Shared Fate is going to give you, it's actually really low damage, honestly, these days, but it's going to be a little bit more consistent damage, and Feast of Souls might help you with your single target burst. So Soul Harvester, that's pretty much it. Everything else is more or less straightforward. It's going to increase your damage, and it's going to load all your damage into Haunt Shadow Bolt combos. Because your Nightfall procs, where you get an instant cast Shadow Bolt, that's where all this damage basically starts to kick in. So Soul Harvester depends on that. Hellcaller doesn't depend on Nightfall quite as much. You'll see that the main thing here is Wither. It's going to turn your Corruption into Wither, which becomes basically a super high damage spell that also gains stacks. And these stacks, it works with this thing called Blackened Soul. So half your Wither damage becomes this like Blackened Soul thing. It's hard to explain, but basically it gains stacks, and every now and then will just do extra damage. And there's all this extra synergy because you have Blackened Soul and you have Seeds of Their Demise. So this will basically, when Blackened Soul deals damage, you have a chance to gain Shard Instability. What Shard Instability is? Instant cast UA. So you get a lot of free instant cast unstable afflictions when you play Hellcaller. And you just get a lot of extra damage, and over here, where is it? You get a chance, oh here we go, periodic damage from Wither has a chance to grant Malevolence for 8 seconds. This is amazing. Devil Fruit, insanely good. Malevolence is your minute cooldown. So every minute you're going to hit Malevolence, it's instant cast, and it's going to make all your targets that have Wither on them suddenly start to take way more damage, and you get a haste buff, so you're doing even more damage on top of that during that little window. And with Devil Fruit, you're going to be proccing Malevolence. As long as you have a Wither on several targets, you're going to be proccing Malevolence a lot. So basically this is up like almost twice a minute, basically. And you have a lot of other synergy points. These are all basically adding damage to your Wither, or some of them to your Agony. The one decision point you need to make here is here. Well, I guess there's two decision points. Here, you can take Curse of the Satyr, which I think is a little easier to play. Basically, it replaces Curse of Tongues. It also has the same effect as Curse of Weakness, but you're basically never casting Curse of Weakness these days because it's not that great. And Aura of Enfeeblement. This is a decent way of basically improving your Unending Resolve. So when you are in a lot of trouble, if you have this, and you press Unending Resolve, it's going to reduce incoming damage by a ton. It's actually really nice. But in most situations, I take Curse of the Satyr. Here, this is the other decision you need to make. Hate Fury Rituals is going to increase your Wither damage, and because Wither is by far your hardest hitting spell, and your not hardest hitting, but the highest percent damage of your kit, this is pretty impactful, but it shortens the duration. Because it shortens the duration, I'm finding Bleak Heart Tactics to be a little bit better, and I think this also works really nicely with Seeds of Their Demise because it makes it much more likely for you to get Shard Instability. Shard Instability gives you free Unstable Afflictions. There's a lot of synergy there, really nice. So this is generally the approach I take with Hellcaller in basically all content. Now for the Affliction tree. Affliction there's two approaches here I'm going to go through. The first is based on Unstable Affliction, and the second is based on Seed of Corruption. They're actually both extremely viable today in a variety of content, but this is the default build that I use in most situations, and I think it is actually pretty effective. Agony. Agony actually, so you have two basic dots that you're spamming all the time, and they're Agony and Wither. Agony is actually doing decent damage in Midnight. I'd say that last expansion, Agony did almost no damage. It was mostly just a filler, and the thing is, it would actually generate soul shards, it was basically just generating shards for you. That's it. Now it does generate shards, but it also does a decent bit of damage. It is something you want to make sure you're keeping on your targets. Really nice. Unstable Affliction. This has changed dramatically in Midnight. This is now a shard spender. There's no cooldown with it, and there's no target count limit. You can put it on as many targets as you want as long as you've got enough soul shards. And it also stacks on a single target. So if there's a high priority target that you want to take out, and you don't think they're going to get dispelled imminently, like a healer just used their dispel, and you have a bunch of shards, you can stack like 5 Unstable Afflictions on them, and they're going to start taking a ton of damage all at the same time. The thing about Unstable Affliction, though, is it can be dispelled, and if somebody dispels it and it has 5 stacks on it, it's going to be the same thing as if they dispel only 1 stack, meaning that the backlash damage, so when Unstable Affliction gets dispelled, it deals backlash damage to the dispeller and makes them silenced. It's not going to increase the backlash damage if you have a lot of stacks. So you have to be thoughtful about how you use your Unstable Affliction. I'll talk about that more in the rotation section, but this is where the skill comes into playing Affliction in PvP these days, is you want to spread Unstable Affliction, but if you see some sort of moment where a healer can no longer dispel because they're CC'd or they already dispelled, then you can stack a bunch of Unstable Afflictions on a single target and do a ton of damage to them. Seed of Corruption is an AoE spell, essentially. It's going to put a little dot on your target, and after that target takes a sufficient amount of damage, which is actually very low threshold, it'll explode and it'll put Wither on everybody who takes damage from Seed. The detonation itself also does a decent bit of damage, and if you take a bunch of talent points down here, I'll just talk about them now, you can make your Seed of Corruption instant cast, which is actually really nice. So you're going to be spamming Seed very easily. Whenever you get a Nightfall proc, you just spam a Seed. Here it's going to decrease the Seed of Corruption cast time, which makes it really fast. It feels like you can just like machine gun out these seeds. It's really fun. Over here, it's going to increase Seed of damage by 50%, which is a lot to at least to your primary target. Makes it actually a pretty threatening single target damage spell too. And this is the fun thing. Sow the seeds. When you have Seed of Corruption, it's actually going to shoot 3 seeds at the same time. 2 of them will do less damage, but it's going to be, if you have a clump of enemies in a big team fight in Blitz, you can shoot Seeds of Corruption at them, and it's gonna feel and look super fun and awesome. And you get a lot of instant casts, a lot of very fast casts, and you're just gonna be shooting seeds everywhere, and they're all just constantly exploding. It's really fun and actually very effective if you can aim it at a clump of enemies consistently. So that is really the seed build, and I do believe it is very viable in Battleground Blitz, and even in some arena or solo shuffle settings, it actually can be effective. However, for most general purposes, I'm going to recommend Unstable Affliction build, which I'll talk about further. For now though, let's mention Nightfall. So Nightfall is interesting. Every time that your Wither ticks, you have a chance to get a Nightfall proc, and Nightfall is going to give you an instant cast either Shadow Bolt or a very fast cast Drain Soul. And that's this choice node here. Shadow Bolt, basically, I think it's like one of the most basic spells. You channel it, you shoot it, but if you have Nightfall, it becomes an instant cast. And if you have Nightfall with a Drain Soul, it's going to basically be a channeled spell. It's going to do a lot of damage while you channel it, and it'll channel super fast when you have Nightfall, and it does execute damage. So this is actually, Drain Soul is actually very strong these days. And there are situations where Drain Soul is probably better than Shadow Bolt. I think if you're playing Affliction in 2v2, Drain Soul is almost certainly going to be better because it'll channel well even while somebody tries to kite and go behind a pillar, and it just does more threatening execute damage, really powerful. However, most of the time you don't want to be channeling Drain Soul constantly because you can get kicked during it, and that's a huge setback. So in general, I think Improved Shadow Bolt is better, and you only cast this with your Nightfall procs. You never are sitting there channeling and casting it with a slow cast. Haunt. Haunt is amazing. So every 15 seconds, you're going to cast this on your primary kill target. You're going to take it with Improved Haunt, which reduces the cast time a lot, and it makes it hit super hard. Haunt actually hits mega hard. It'll hit a little harder with Soul Harvester, I think, or at least it pairs better with Soul Harvester because you get a Nightfall proc guaranteed every time you cast it. However, even as Hellcaller, Haunt hits super hard, and more importantly, it triggers your Apex Talents. The only thing you really need to know about your Apex Talents is that, first of all, your Apex Talents as Affliction are really good. They make you do a ton of damage. Wrath of Nathreza and what's it called? Some other Nathreza thing. They do a ton of damage, a huge part of your rotation in general, and they're all accompanied by Haunt. So every time you cast Haunt, it's going to trigger a lot of extra damage, and I think you get a damage buff, or Haunt will cause them to take more damage. So Shadow of Nathreza, really strong. Use it with Haunt. It's a 15-second cooldown. The cooldown resets if the target dies, so it's pretty nice. In general, you're going to be casting Haunt all the time it's available. Here you have a choice node. These are both really good. Absolute Corruption, if you're having a little bit of trouble with Wither falling off your target because you're not refreshing it as frequently as you could, then I think Absolute Corruption will give you more value. However, these days I'm playing a lot of Siphon Life, which gives you a little bit extra Wither damage. It gives you some self-healing too, but it's not that much. But it gives you more Wither damage, and I'm finding that when I take this, it's actually still pretty doable to maintain Wither uptime. So I'm using this a lot more these days. However, Absolute Corruption, you barely lose any damage, and it makes it a lot easier to keep Wither up. Over here, Cunning Cruelty is actually terrible. This does almost no damage. It's 0.5% in the best case scenario, so really small damage. However, it's one of the easiest ways to get down here. I would take Withering Bolt if I could, because Shadow Bolt is not bad. It's not bad. Even as Hellcaller, it's not bad. It's not great. It doesn't hit that hard, even with all the recent rounds of buffs. But this does take 2 points to get down below, and it's hard to find another point I would want to sacrifice to put it into Withering Bolt. It's just not very effective. So I tend to put 1 point here and just forget about it. Creeping Death, little extra damage. It's nice. Dark Harvest. So this is now a 1 minute cooldown. It gets a little shorter here when you take Call the Weak. Basically, as you cast Unstable Affliction, it's going to reduce the cooldown a little bit, so this ends up being like a 45-50 second cooldown generally. Dark Harvest It doesn't do a ton of damage. It is, however, the thing to cast when it's up. You still want to cast it. However, it is a Shadow Flame spell. So the way to use it is you don't just cast it as soon as it's up. You have to get kicked in shadow or something, or you have to get through the enemy kicks first, because it's a channeled spell, and if you get kicked during it, you can't do anything because it's Shadow Flame. So it is a good filler spell. You want to use it basically on cooldown, as long as you've got some dots rolling on every enemy that you want to hit with it. And it'll do decent damage, a little bit of self-healing, but it's more just a nice filler when you get kicked in shadow. Over here, little extra mastery, that's a nice thing, increases your dot damage. Here, you're generally going to be playing with a pet in every situation. If you're finding that your pet is dying a lot and you're having trouble keeping your pet alive, then just sacrifice it. It'll make your life a lot easier. It's a lot easier to control no pets at all. So totally reasonable choice. However, you're going to do a lot less damage. The proc from Grimoire of Sacrifice is pretty low these days. So the 3% damage you lose is a lot, but that's okay. If this makes your life easier, then go for it. Summon Darkglare. So Darkglare doesn't do very much damage. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Observer guy, I guess it's a Darkglare. His name is Darkglare. He pops out, he does a little bit of damage, but more importantly, he makes your other dots do more damage while it's active. It's worth casting every 2 minutes, making sure that first you have a bunch of dots rolling on all your priority targets. You'll do a little noticeable extra damage during it, but it's not a huge deal. The main thing about Summon Darkglare is he has a couple of abilities down here that you could consider taking. Nether Plating, this will increase his I-beam damage and do AoE damage. It's not that good in PvP. I'm not finding that it's worth taking. Eye Contract increases Darkglare duration, which again will increase that dot damage boost duration. Maybe not bad in certain situations, but again, it's hard to pick points down here because there's so many good ones to pick from. So usually I skip it. And then Malefic Grasp. So this one's kind of fun. I do recommend trying it out and seeing if you like it. But Malefic Grasp will turn your Shadow Bolt or Drain Soul into a channeled spell during Darkglare. So when you cast Darkglare, you can now start spamming Malefic Grasp, which is going to channel into your target. It'll do a little bit more damage than Shadow Bolt would, and it makes them tick for like periodic damage too if they have dots on them. It's not that much though. It's enough to be potentially worth it, but I generally skip it and instead try to put points over here and here, which are not great points. I'll talk about them now, but these are crit-based points. It's going to increase the critical strike chance of your dots. It's going to increase the critical strike damage of your dots. The thing about crit in PvP is that all crit damage is nerfed by 50%, which is a huge negative modifier. And so that makes crit generally less worth it in PvP. However, because of the way I play Hellcaller is really more focused on dot damage, using my instant cast and moving around, I think I get a lot of value out of them, but you absolutely can switch these points elsewhere. You could get Withering Bolt if you really want to make your Shadow Bolts a little bit more impactful. You could do this, Malefic Grasp plus Eye Contract, and make your Darkglare 2-minute cooldown a little stronger so you can Malefic Grasp during it. But this is also a nice passive way to play, and I think it works pretty well. This increases agony damage, you're going to take it. This over here is going to increase your wither damage, and it increases curse durations. Pretty nice. You're definitely going to take both those points. Over here, Shard Instability. So we mentioned this earlier because Seeds of Their Demise is going to proc Shard Instability, which basically will give you an instant cast Unstable Affliction every now and then. That's actually huge. Unstable Affliction is a decent bit of damage, especially if you can proc a bunch of free ones, get a bunch of shards saved up, and dump them on a target. You can get like 7 Unstable Afflictions rolling on the same target at one time. And that can be actually a ton of damage for the next 10 seconds or so. Pretty nice. And the nice thing about Shard Instability is that even if you don't spec into it, you will still proc it with Seeds of Their Demise. So if you go a full Seed of Corruption build and you don't spec into this, you will still get free Unstable Afflictions. So if you go Seed build, you can still use your free Unstable Afflictions, do a little extra damage that way. This is going to increase your damage of your dots. Great. This is going to increase damage of your dots or Unstable Affliction or Seed of Corruption. Also great. Over here, reduces the cast time of UA. You'd always take this if you're playing a UA focused build. You always take this too. It's going to increase your haste whenever you cast Unstable Affliction and you're stacking it on a target. Huge. Fatal Echoes. This is going to give your Unstable Affliction a chance of refreshing itself. It's actually very hard to track how impactful this is, but I guess if you think of it as a 10% buff to Unstable Affliction damage, it's very much worth it because UA tends to be 10-15% of your damage easily, and it's impactful damage because if you are to proc Fatal Echoes a lot, if you get lucky with it, you're simply going to be rolling a lot of extra damage on the same target. Pretty nice. These 2 points in the middle are also flex points. So Ravenous Affliction is going to give you a chance to get more Nightfalls, but Nightfall is not that big a deal because Shadow Bolt doesn't hit that hard. Even if you take all the Shadow Bolt improving talent points like Withering Bolt, if you go Soul Harvester and get all these points, it's simply still going to be underwhelming. So this is it's not a huge deal to get a bunch of extra Nightfall procs. And Death's Embrace is pretty nice, but it's an execute for your dots. Your dots are going to do more damage as an execute, but whether it's worth it or not, it's up for debate. You can definitely move these points if you want to put them more here, or if you want to get a couple of things like Nocturnal Yield, which is nice. It actually improves your wither damage too. Those are all decent options. This is a nice passive way to play, and I'm all for lazy play because when you're playing Affliction, you've got enough on your plate already, so trying to ease the mental load is always a good thing. But that, in a nutshell, is your Affliction tree and everything you need to know about your Affliction talent points. Again, a reminder, there's 2 totally viable paths. Unstable Affliction is probably the default path. It's probably better in most situations, but Seed of Corruption is strong. It's very fun in Blitz. Definitely try it out. Finally, PvP talent points. So you're almost always going to take Jinx. Jinx is so powerful. This is, if you apply a Curse of Exhaustion, Curse of the Satyr, Curse of Tongues, whatever, on a target, it's going to also apply Corruption and Agony. It'll cost a Soul Shard, which sounds pretty annoying, honestly, but at the same time, it's actually huge to save a couple globals here and there because this is going to be a game changer, especially in Blitz when you're just spamming Curse of Exhaustion on people who are trying to run past. You're going to hit them with a Curse of Exhaustion, which slows them, and with 2 dots, they're going to take a decent bit of damage just from those 2 dots. Really powerful, even in Shuffle and Arena. Now, there is a world in which you can skip Jinx and try and do something with Soul Swap instead. Soul Swap it's going to cost a Soul Shard, and it's going to copy the dot effects on a target over to another target. And it actually works with Unstable Affliction stacks as far as I can tell. So that's actually pretty nice in the sense that you can put a bunch of dots on one guy and then Soul Swap to another person and basically apply a lot of extra pressure that way. However, it's hard to afford both Jinx and Soul Swap because you're not really going to be using, basically you'd just be draining all of your Soul Shards by going that path. So you wouldn't really take both at any given time. So it's one or the other. In most situations, you're going to get more value out of Jinx. So I think I'd usually go Jinx. Your other 2 talent points, you can go a variety of ways. Default settings, I would go Soul Rip and Nether Ward. They're both really nice defensive spells, and you need a lot of defensive spells when you're playing Affliction. Shadow Rift, really fun in Battleground Blitz. You can make a lot of very flashy plays, especially when there's an objective and you're the enemy team's trying to capture a cart on Silver Shard Mines. Is really nice to use Shadow Rift there. Rotten Decay, this is going to be fun in certain situations, especially if you're playing Soul Harvester and you're taking advantage of Nightfall procs a lot, or if you're playing 2v2 and you're just draining soul, somebody who's trying to run behind a pillar. It's actually really nice to pair Rotten Decay with that. It's going to keep dot uptime very high, but oftentimes I'll skip it, especially when playing Hellcaller. Gateway Mastery, I would only take this in 3s if you're on comms with your teammates. It's pretty nice, it's going to increase the distance that you go. Maybe you can use it in some Blitz maps like Temple of Kotmogu, which are very high mobility maps, but not a super high priority for me in my gameplay. Bonzafelt, never take this. It's basically doesn't do enough damage to be worth it. Impish Instincts, this is really nice. You want to take this a lot if you're facing a lot of melee type of people, so definitely worth focusing on if you're facing melee. And then over here, Bloodstones. This is pretty fun. I do recommend trying this if you haven't tried it. It can turn your health stones into Bloodstones, which basically give you a haste buff. And the haste buff is really massive. It says 25% here, but I feel like it's higher than that. Or so, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's pretty significant. So if you use this, you will do a ton of extra damage during that window. However, it's gimmicky. It won't work in all situations. So for the most part, you're going to prefer having Pact of Gluttony and healing up every minute with your health stones. That was a lot. That's a lot of information. But let's go to the target dummies and let's show you the rotations so you get a better sense of just how things work in reality. Where are the dummies? They're somewhere over here. Target dummies here. Okay, so when you're playing Affliction, there are two basic kind of modes you need to be thinking about. The first is like your standard loop. It's basically maintenance, dot maintenance. You're just going to be dotting. Now notice this. See, if I cast Agony, Agony is going to apply to 2 targets at the same time. That's super, super nice. Quality of life improvement in Midnight. So it makes it so that it's very easy to keep Agony rolling on multiple targets. But the main dot you want to keep up as much as possible is Wither. Wither and Agony. Keep these on as many targets as you can, at least 3 targets if possible. This will give you a lot of extra shards from Agony and a lot of extra procs from Wither and a lot of damage. Most of your damage is going to come from the Wither. Very important. But this is the main thing. It's a maintenance rotation. It's not really a rotation you go through. It's you maintain priority on stuff. Agony and Wither. Actually, Wither and then Agony, more importantly. Keep these dots rolling on 3 targets, if at all possible. And that's basically it. Then you want to be casting Haunt on cooldown on the target that you think is the most likely thing to kill. You want to just cast it on cooldown. Other than that, maintain your dots. And that's it. That's literally it. Everything else you do is going to just support that. You're going to be casting Fears. You're going to be casting Howl of Terror to fear a bunch of stuff. Coil to use a little CC on stuff. Other than that, maintain your dots. Use Haunt on cooldown. And then start thinking about when you can start doing damage with your go. So your go rotation, your burst rotation is super simple. Basically, make sure your dots are maintained. Hit Malevolence. Hit Dark Glare. Soul Harvest. That'll do a ton of damage. You want to dump your shards so you have a bunch of unstable afflictions rolling. Make sure you don't fall off on your agonies and your dots. And then make sure my dot fell off there, oops. And then use your extra shards and instant casts on Unstable Affliction. So you can see here, what I'm trying to do is I'm spreading my UA. That is not necessarily the best way to go. It depends on the situation. Sometimes you want to just load a bunch of UA on a single target, just try and kill one person. So here I'm just casting a bunch of UA on the same target. Use my Nightfall procs. My Dark Harvest is up. Make sure you have your dots rolling on as many targets as possible. Harvest. Just using my stuff on cooldown. And in terms of the dot maintenance, don't let your dots fall off even during your burst rotation. And then otherwise, unload. Malevolence is up, so you want to cast Malevolence. You want to use Haunt. Keep dots rolling. So what you'll notice is like your burst rotation is not really a rotation either. It's a priority system. You want to use your Malevolence, you want to use your Dark Glare, but you also want to maintain all of your other pressure at the same time. Like you want to keep Haunt up, you want to keep your dots up, and then you want to dump your shards into Unstable Affliction. And the only decision you need to make is, does the Unstable Affliction go on a single target that you want to burst, or does it go on multiple targets that you want to spread? Now the alternative is if you want to play a seed spam build, instead of dumping all your shards into Unstable Affliction, you do the exact same thing. You maintain your dots, keep dots rolling, and then when you want to start unloading, instead of unloading on Unstable Affliction, you simply cast Seed. And you'll see that Seed casts 3 at a time, and they're just exploding as soon as they land. You can see it does a ton of damage. It's really fun. You still get the Shard Instability procs, so you'll get a lot of extra damage that way. You will have to apply your Agonies, but you don't have to apply Wither. It saves you from applying Wither because it's a lot easier to maintain, because Seed will itself apply Wither. But other than that, you just want to be spamming Seed, keeping Haunt up, cast your cast your, whatever you call it, Haunt, your Agonies, use your Nightfalls. I've been using the Nightfalls on Shadow Bolt out of habit, but you shouldn't. You should use your Nightfalls on Seed of Corruption instead, because you get a free Seed of Corruption, and you can do a ton of damage that way. It's very fun, very nice. However, it requires your targets to be clumped together, so usually it's going to be more effective on Blitz maps where there's a lot of team fighting going on. And that's basically it. That's your damage rotation. Dark Lair, obviously, it's your longest cooldown, so it's not always going to be available for your go, but Malevolence every single minute. Malevolence every single minute, very powerful, especially if you can pair it with other things like Dark Harvest and Haunt and a bunch of shards saved up, so you can dump a bunch of Unstable Afflictions at the same time. In terms of defensives, your defensives are very simple for Affliction. You will use your Dark Pact, basically on cooldown, but this is going to give you a nice shield that's almost an entire health bar. But you can use this while stunned too, really important. You can use your Health Stone, especially paired with a Soul Burn. I can't use it right now because I'm full health, but if you pair it with a Soul Burn, it's going to be like 60-70% of your health, something like that. Huge heal. Use that every minute. Other than that, it's all mobility. You just want to make sure you're like gating, you're porting. Something's wrong with, I think it's like lagging right now in the city. Anyway, you can use gate twice with Frequent Traveler, and then you can simply, other than that, do as much damage as you can, because the way you play Affliction is you have to be on the offense at all times. If you're losing a lot of damage because you're kiting a lot and you're running away and trying to play defensively, it's a losing proposition in general. You will simply fall behind if you're not doing top damage in any given situation. So do a ton of damage, and it'll force your enemies to have to play more defensively. Like, they will have to kite, retreat, heal up, and that will make you stronger both offensively and defensively. So think of yourself as really just always on the attack as Affliction, and you'll do a lot better in general. And that's pretty much it. Some closing thoughts. I'm going to say that, again, Affliction is, I think people misunderstand it. A lot of people are writing it off as totally dead in Midnight. It has gotten around a couple rounds of buffs. I think it might get more buffs because it is struggling a little bit in Arena and Shuffle. However, it is viable. It's not totally dead in those situations, and I think with a small tuning, it would probably be pretty strong in Shuffle. I'm making it work. It's totally fine. But in Blitz, it is a top tier spec. It is elite, easy elite. I don't know about elite, but it's easy way to get to 1600 or 1800 for most people. 1950 as well for the weapon illusion, which is I'm showing right here. It looks super cool this season. I definitely recommend trying out Affliction in Blitz. It's very fun. You feel like you have a high impact on every game, and it's very, I don't know, this is one of the best seasons to be playing Warlock and PvP in general, because Demo, Destro, and Affliction are all very good, especially in Blitz, but also in Shuffle, depending on the spec you're playing. All right. Last thing I'll say is that I do stream often. Catch me at twitch.tv/smellystinky. I answer as many questions as I can. Sometimes these days the chat gets pretty hectic, but I'm doing my best to answer all the questions I can. Try to do a lot of theory crafting, a lot of testing of different builds. I play Affliction, Demo, and Destro in all forms of PvP. I hope to see you there. Hope to see you on stream. Hope to see you in my shuffles and in my blitzes. And everyone, have a great season 1, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.